name's John Chapman. Now in this video podcast we're going to look at how we deliver the return on investment, and specifically for our shiny new computer system, the timelines of when the benefits will begin, starting with go live and looking forward after go live to what sort of periods we should be delivering benefits into the business. So where do we start? Well, the Office of Government Commerce book, Managing Successful Projects with Prince 2, gives guidance on the delivery of the business case, and it makes a number of points, three of which are: firstly, you should identify when the organisation can expect to accrue the benefits. Secondly, you should have a look at the earliest and latest feasible start dates. And thirdly, what are the earliest and latest feasible completion dates of that benefit case? So what are the periods we should consider? Well, the first one is on system go live. We've spent months, perhaps years, getting to this point. We have our champagne party, we congratulate ourselves that the system is live, and we should get some benefits once we start to use it. The second one relates to about 3 to 6 months after go live. We may need to do some statistical analysis of the data, and from that draw conclusions on how we can work better. And after 1 year, perhaps when we've been through a whole business life cycle of a year, we can then do more analysis, or we're going to see that other improvements come into the business. So let's go through a worked example. We'll take the processing of an invoice. Now, prior to the electronic implementation of our system, the invoice came in the post, and what did it do? Well, it was sent to accounts payable, and they were likely to enter it into the system as unapproved. They'd put them into the photocopier, they'd create a folder of unapproved invoices, and off they'd then go to our manager, who would then have to sign them off through the internal post. And they'd have a look at them, and it would sit on their desk, and some point later the supplier would ring up and ask for the money, and the accounts team then ring up that individual manager and they say, where's the invoice? And we have a lot of process. It's a paper flow and it's a paper chase across the organisation, and there's no visibility as to whether the manager received it in the first place. Next, we'll have a look at how on go live an electronic process immediately delivers benefits to the organisation. In our previous process, we identified that it was a manual paper chase across the organisation. We're now live with our spend control solution, and the invoice comes in and it goes to accounts payable as before. Now they're going to enter it into the spend control solution, but rather than then take a paper copy and send it across the organisation, an email is produced which goes straight to our manager, and it says this is now waiting for your approval, and it can be approved online. So immediately you've got visibility of that email being sent out, and the manager who it's going to knows that it is waiting for their approval. This is delivered on go live. And so for all invoices that come into the organisation, we can have direct invoice approval, and immediately we can see that the benefits are being delivered of removing that paper chase. If you've seen my video podcast on benefit realisation and improving governance and compliance, you'll know this diagram. The idea is that you have your spend control solution and you have your enabler features, and from those enabler features you then make business changes. And in this example it's around having a look at the purchase order mandating for all purchases. Now from that you deliver benefits into the organisation: delegation of authority enforced, compliance with supplier sourcing, and invoices matched through to orders and receipts. And that improves the governance and compliance of the organisation. Now this doesn't happen immediately. You're already going to have orders out there that won't be in the system when you went live, and so it can take potentially from 3 to 6 months for purchases out there to have a purchase order that has been generated from our new system. It might be worth, if it's longer than 6 months from your order to invoice cycle, to do some retrospective data migration, and this is a decision to take when you're implementing the system. However, in this example, you can see that it may be 3 to 6 months before we fully realise the improvement in the governance and compliance for our spend lifecycle. In this example, we'll have a look at why it may take 1 year before we deliver a further set of benefits. If we take a timeline, and we'll have our start, a 6-month interval, a 9-month interval, and then 1 year after go live. So we'll assume, for ease of review, that in January we went live. We congratulated ourselves that our system was now going to gather data which we could analyse. Now it might take 6 months of use before we have a meaningful data set that we can do a statistical analysis on. Now after 6 months we can sit down and say, well, let's draw some conclusions, and then from that we've identified that we have some non-conformance from our suppliers. We need to arrange meetings with them, and so we go into August and September and we share the feedback. And they then go back to their respective organisations, perhaps through October, November and December, to see how they can improve their processes and reduce the costs. But it takes 6 months in the first instance to gather the data that we can then analyse, and then time to have meetings to share that feedback so that we can then see, after 1 year, a reduction in cost or just a reduction in non-conformance. What does this mean to the great and the good, the stakeholders that we have to work with when we plan and deliver our project? Well, for those at the top of the organisation, they will want to know when the benefits are going to be delivered. And we've identified that there's 3 places that we could look at. Firstly, on go live. On immediate go live, we will deliver some benefits into the business. Perhaps after 3 to 6 months, as the system flows through and as old orders, perhaps as the example I showed you, come into the organisation, we then deliver further benefits. The last area was why it may take up to a year before we can realise fully all the benefits from our system. But what we should have in our benefit realisation plan, which we do as part of our project planning, is an identification as to what those benefits are and when they will be delivered into the business. My name's John Chapman. I do hope you have found this of interest. Please give us a call. We'd like to talk to you further about how we can work with your organisation.